which is very big, right? 65,534 IPs, which is very big. Now, how can I do that, right? Let's say inside this environment, I want that inside with this 65,000 IPs, I want to allocate 254 IPs to my web server, 254 IPs to my dev server, or 250 IP for my DB server. Just think about this scenario, right? I want these to be happening there. Now, what happened? And I want that web server should not communicate to the DB server, DB server should not communicate to the dev server. And again, these things deployed inside the one VNet, right? So then to segment it further, right? To segment a bigger IP into a smaller IPs, I need to create a subnet. I need to create a subnet there, right? So now what I'm going to do it, I'm inside the VNet, I'm going to create a subnet. I'm going to show you all that in a practical, but before that, let's just discuss the topologies here, right? So far we created a VNet here, we created a subnet. Now I can use this VNet subnet to deploy my virtual machine there, right? Now, once the virtual machine is deployed, I'm going to configure a web service inside the virtual machine. I'm going to configure a web service so that once you go in a browser, right, and you'll type that HTTP, not the HTTPS because I do not have that certificate, HTTP and then public IP of your VM. Let's say I got this public IP there, right? I got this public IP. So if you'll access that HTTP from internet, you will get some kind of response from there. So that's what I'm going to configure inside my virtual machine. We call it as a web service there. Now for the person, right, who's sitting on the internet, this person Bob, who's sitting on the internet, is trying to get the access of this web services which is configured here from the internet, right? Is going to get that access from the web service on that virtual machine. And I'm saying it, this Bob is allowed to get that access. But at the same time, another person which is coming, right? This Tim. I'm saying it, Tim should not get the access of this virtual machines which have that web service configured. Then how can I manage that access, right? For one person, the same way he's coming it here and I'm saying it, deny the access. For the other person, I'm saying it, allow that access. There comes the network security group. I can write some inbound, outbound rule there, and then we are going to get that level of securities there as well. Now let's do one thing. Let's move to the cloud. And we'll do that further things there. Once we're done with this demo section, we're going to start that Q&A, and you guys can ask your questions if you have any, right, related to the demo and related to that, any questions for this course. We're going to start that. Let me log into my So I'm inside my cloud environment, right? I logged into my cloud. Now what happened? Let me first search that, as we discussed, right? Let me search the VNet here, a virtual network here. I can just type that virtual network. It's a global search bar. I can type that virtual network here, and then you can see that section here, right? Virtual network. Click on that virtual network. I'm going to create a new one here. Now Azure is offering two kinds of subscription, right? One is free trial and one is pay as you go. Since my free trial is not anymore, I'm using pay as you go. What does it mean? So whatever the resources I'm going to deploy it there, right, in my cloud, and the way I'm going to use it, for that only I need to pay the prices. So let's say I'll show you in a while. If I'm going to deploy one virtual machine, right, and then expected price, cloud Azure is going to show me like for deploying a virtual machine, you need to pay 14K INR or 15K INR. This is not that upfront cost you're going to pay. It's an assumption of the cost. But if you're saying instead of using 24/7 that virtual machine, you are only using 2 hours in a day, right? So for that part only you need to pay it there. And for our demo, for your practical, I'm going to set up a free trial account where you're going to get the $200 US dollar credit, and that is enough for us to do any practical, right? you will hardly be able to spend it like 50-60 dollars maximum. That's it, not more than that, right? Now to deploy any resources inside the cloud, you need to have that resource group created. It's a it's this what resource group, right? It's a logical. We have resource group, you won't be seeing it in a real scenario, but it's a logical aggregation of your resources. So this is my resource group, a bigger picture here. This is resource group. Inside the resource group, I can deploy my infrastructure there. Let's say I'm deploying a VM, I can deploy inside my resource group. I'm deploying my VNet, I can do it inside my VNet. I'm going to deploy another thing like storage account, I can do inside my resource group. Now if you want to deploy another resource group or another services, you can create another resource group here, right? And they deploy these types of stuffs here as well, right? So it's a putting every resources inside one bucket. We call like a resource group there. To just give you a layman language answer here. Now let's create that resource group. It's very simple to create the resource group. Either you can go in the global search bar and search for the resource group, or either you can just put the name here and then type the name. Let's say I'm typing that name as in, I'm typing a name as in demo. I'm typing a name as in, one second. So let me put that name of the resource group as in demo. So we are just doing a demo. I'm putting a demo one here. That's it. That resource group got created. Now I need to provide some virtual network name also, right? I need to provide the name of my virtual network here. So let's see, I'm providing a name of my virtual network as in demo VNet, right? And then I'm going to deploy that inside the central India. So this going to be reason where my virtual network will be going to be hosted. I'll put the next. If you want to enable the encryption, so whatever the traffic, right? If you deployed that virtual network there and whatever the traffic flowing it, so this is my virtual network. If any traffic which is coming inside your virtual network, right? This is VNet, or any traffic going outside the virtual network, right? You want to enable the encryption. So any traffic which is going, if any person, the third person is sitting it here and they want to read that traffic, what's going it in and out, they won't be able to do it because that traffic is encrypted now. And that what this person, the hacker, is going to see it now, it's going to see it like this way, hashing form, right? This way. So no one will be able to read that data here. If you want to enable that encryption, you can do that, right? But for the demo section, I am not going to do it there. This Bastion service, Azure Firewall, Bastion is also I'm going to discuss later on, but just leave that as it is. So DDoS, right? If you want to enable the DDoS on this VNet level, what does it mean? So I'm saying it, I'm deploying a VNet here. I'm deploying a VNet here, right? And now I'm deploying multiple resources. I'm deploying 5 VMs inside my VNet, right? And this person is saying enable the DDoS protection here, right? This option is showing to me enable the DDoS. Now if I enable the DDoS on the VNet level, right? So let's say I enable the DDoS here. This is my DDoS, right? Now whatever the resources you are going to deploy inside that VNet, it's all going to be covered for the DDoS plan. If anything happen, any abnormalities, any abnormal request started coming on this VM, right? DDoS quickly will automatically come in a picture and they will mitigate your issue. They will trigger the response, they will trigger that incident, and then they are going to mitigate the issue which is happening to your VMs. Now what I mean by that, right? Let's say on day-to-day scenarios, these VMs are expected to get 100 requests per second. Now if DDoS is happening, which means from across the region you started getting the hits there. Now all of a sudden you are saying that instead of getting 100 requests per second, you started getting 100k requests per second now. 100k, I mean sorry, 100k requests per second now, right? Now this VM is only capable of managing 1000 requests now, and now it's sending 100k requests per second. Now DDoS will come, it will see if these requests are genuine or these requests are expected to come on this VM, then only this request will get allowed. Otherwise DDoS is going to automatically block that request from across the world which is coming it here. That's what DDoS will do. It's very good feature, but it's very expensive service they're offering it. If you are going for the DDoS, you need to pay a $3,000, which means if you opt for the DDoS, the next month you need to pay the $3,000. First month is free, and then from the next month you need to pay the $3,000 as a fixed price. So let's just see. I'm not going to select that. And then this is that VNet, right? This is the VNet and the subnet I said. So now I'm taking a bigger subnet, which is 10.0.0.0/16. Now, how much IPs I'm going to get it? I'm going to get this much of the IP from this bigger subnet. It means like I'm creating a I'm creating a room. So this is, let's say I bought this plot, right? And I'm now creating my house here. I'm creating my house. This is my area of my house. Let's say it's like 10 feet long and 20 feet wide, right? So now I created this plot here, and now I'm going to build my house here, right? Now what I can do it here inside this bigger ring, there are inside this plot, right? I will be having one bedroom here. I will be having one dining room. I will be having a kitchen here, right? And so on. There are other things are also there, right? I will be having all these things here. Now I want that. How can I use that bigger plot into a smaller? Because there will be a divider section between that, right? There will be a wall in between of them. There will be a wall in between of them, right? So I'm breaking a bigger plot into a smaller segment to use as per my accordance. Now the same thing I'm going to do with the subnet. I bought a bigger thing here. I bought a bigger thing here, right? And now okay, I bought a bigger thing here, right? That bigger thing is the bigger plot is my this VNet, which is that VNet subnet, right? This is that VNet subnet here. And now I'm saying it, I need to use it as per my context because that buying a bigger plot is not making a sense until and unless you're not doing anything there, right? Until and unless you're not doing anything there. Let me close this section here. Until and unless you're not going to do it, right? So for that, to break down these things into a smaller region, we create a subnet. And in the networking sections, we call it as a subnetting. Take the same reference, right? Like the way we were dividing a bigger plot into a smaller, a dining room, a bedroom, right? The similarly, we are going to do it with my VNet here. To break this thing into a smaller room, we call it as a subnet. So now if I'll create that subnets, again, very easy to create that subnet on the cloud, right? You just need to put the name here, right? I'm just going to put that, let's say I'm putting a name, VM subnet. I'm putting a name of VM subnet, right? Now, if they are saying to you, right, Azure is saying to you, you have a IP range of this much. This is your VNet IP range, which is the total range of your IP, right? How much IP you want to use it for this subnet? Again, just give a, so this is VNet. Now this room, how much, how much space you want to allocate for this room here? I'm saying it, I just want 5 feet and 5 feet. Similarly, I'm saying it, I within that 65,000 IP, I just need 256 IPs for my VM to be deployed. And for rest of the IPs, right, 65,000 minus 256. The rest of the IPs which will comes to here, right, 64, 750 IPs, I'm going to use for my other purpose. Let's say I am going to use it for my database. I'm going to use for my other things, right? There are multiple things you can do it. But for this thing, I'm going to use only 256 IP. So that's what they are saying it here. Now, let's just don't think, don't consider other experts. We are going to discuss one by one every stress there, right? The subnet delegations, network policies for the private endpoint. Because if I'm going to tell you that, you won't be able to going to get it there. This needs the detailed overviews and then working on the services. The NAT gateway, again, also, if you want to attach your communication with some NAT gateway, they can do that. Let's just create that. Very simple. I created a subnet with the name of VM subnet. A default subnet which comes with that Azure, right? If you're creating a VNet, a default subnet is also going to be created. If you want to delete, you can do that delete here. But I'm not deleting it. And then other subnet I created a VM subnet, right? Now, with 65,256 IPs, these IPs got allocated 256 and 256. The remaining IPs is still there, right? Now, Move next. Tag also very important, right? If you're running that cost optimization activities or any other things, right? Let's say you did the deployment to the Azure cloud now, and now what happened? You have 2000 resources running in your cloud environment. 2000 resources running in your cloud environment. Now what happened? Cost is seeing it like you're, let's say you're getting that 50k dollar, 50k dollar every month for that cost of that Azure, right? Now, company came to you, and this is what happened in our real scenarios also, right? Organization reaching out to you and they are saying, hey, this cost is very high for us, right? You need to reduce some cost there. You need to reduce some cost there. So what you are going to do it there, right? You can't simply go and delete that production things over there, right? So for that, I'm providing a tag. Let's say I'm providing a tag. I'm saying it environment as in dev. So these resources belong to dev. Now I can easily look for them, which of them is I can use them and which I can delete it there, right? So for that part, it's just the one case I can use that tags. There are multiple things to use that tags also. So the deployment for my virtual VNet is getting started. Now it's very quick, right? You can see the deployment already done. The demo VNet got created here. Now what else I'm seeing it here? The resource group, DNS server name, right? And then other things also I'm going to see it there, right? Like the address space, you see that address space, the total address space is there, right? Now inside that I'm going to see that what is the name of my subnet also, which I configured there, right? So that way the VNet deployment is success. Now let me go and do the deployment of my, we call it as a, so if I'll go in address space, show you subnet, right? You can see the two subnet got created here. One as in default, another was in VNet. Now I'm going to deploy my VM inside this subnet here. I'm going to deploy my VM inside this subnet. Again, very simple. Go in a virtual machine, search for the virtual machine, click here. Now create a virtual machine there. Create a virtual machine there. Again, as I said, right, to create any resources on the cloud, you need to have a resource group. But the resource group already created, right? I want to use the same resource group, the demo one, on which I created my VNet. I need to provide the name of my VM, right? So let's say I'm using that. This is my app VM. This is my app VM, right? I'm just telling that app VM. I'm hosting it in the central India. Availability options, again, availability zone. If you want to, I'm going to tell that availability zone in our later sections, right? In our classes, but just think about, right, how you're going to make sure that your VM is available, right? Let's say I'm deploying that in a central India, right? And this central India VM is ready. It's working it here, right? This VM is ready in my India region, right? Now, if anything disaster happened to this India region, how my VM is still going to be accessible to me? How my whatever the stuffs is there inside my India VM, right? I still want to access that because this is my production VM, right? It's having that impact there, right? How can I use that? So for that, you can use the zone categories. So any VM which you are deploying it, any reason, right? A replica, you can say a duplicate VM is also going to be created inside the underlying infrastructure of Azure. So if anything happened to India region and you have a replica in East US region, quickly you can divert your traffic to the East US and you can access that. So that's what availability zone concepts and other aspects will commit there, right? Now, what happened if I'll go further down here? Security type, let me select that standard here. Now they're saying which image you want to deploy it, right? If you deploy anything inside your, either you can do Windows based deployment, either you can do Ubuntu based deployment, right? You need to provide some images there, right? If you're doing that Windows, you need to provide that Windows iOS, right? So same thing they're asking it here, which image you can opt it here. There are so many images in that marketplace. We call this as a marketplace where we can opt for anything you want to do it, right? So let's say I'm going to opt for the Windows. That Windows server is there, right? Let me select that Windows server there. Let me select that Windows server there. I'm saying it Windows server there, right? I'm using Windows Server 26 data center. Architecture same like we have that in our laptop or in our desktop. uh, x64 or ARM 64 you want to have it, right? You can use it there. Now, like we use our laptop, we have the different memories and different GB of RAMs over there, right? The same way you can opt for here also. You can use that two CPUs and 8 gigs of memory, and this is going to cost this much in India, Indian rupees, right? If you opting for one CPU and 3.5 gigs of memory, you need to pay the different thing, right? The same way, all that sizes and the price is going to be vary the number of compute you are going to use it. We call as a compute there. So see how the cost is getting differ, right? If I'm opting it for 2 gigs, 8 gigs of two CPUs and 8 gigs of memory, it's costing me estimate cost of $13,000, 13,000 Indian rupees. And if I'm costing me four CPU, the cost is going to be changed there, 25,000, right? See how quickly the cost is changing as per my increasing that compute resources there. Now I need to provide that username and password. The same way we provide that for our laptop login and desktop login. Let me provide that AZ admin, and I'm saying it AZ admin 1234. AZ admin 1234. Should asking for one special character is also need to be there. So let me provide that. Now I'm not going to anything here. Now go in a disk. It's again the same thing, right? Whether you want to attach that uh, SSD to your laptop or hard disk to your laptop, or the other options which is there, right? So let's say I'm just saying for premium, this is costly, but for just deployment, I'm using that. And if you want to attach, so let's say your disk is full, you use that 100 GB of your space in your laptop, and now you want to use another hard disk. The same way you can do that here. You can attach or create a new disk and attach it, and then you need to pay that for that part. Now I created a demo VNet, the same thing, the demo VNet. I'm going to use a VM subnet inside my demo VNet. Now next, keep that everything as in default. I'm going to tell you what CSPM, Security Posture Management of the Cloud, which is Microsoft Defender for Cloud, right? I'm going to tell you that now at once, and then tags. I'll keep everything as it is default, and then review and create. It's going to cost me an estimate price of 16.14,000 to 822 rupees, right? This is if I am going to use 24 into 7 of my VM, right? And if I'll use 1 hour only, right? In let's say in a day I'm using 1 hour for my VM, or 2 hours in a day, then I need to pay that much of the cost only to the Azure cloud. It's not that upfront cost, like the way I told you. If you're opting for a DDoS, you have to pay 3,000 USD dollar to the Azure, right? It's not like if you're using it or not using it, you are getting minimum use of DDoS or maximum use of DDoS, you have to pay that $3,000, right? But VMs and other things is works on that, the how you are going to utilize it. If you're utilizing on that higher environment, very big, I mean, utilization is happening it there, then you need to pay that in that way. Now VM deployment is complete. Click on go to resource now, and then settings, all the things you can do it, right? Now what I need to do it here, I need to connect to my VM. It's very easy. Simply go in a connect, right? Download the RDP file here. Download the RDP file here. RDP file is downloaded. Let me open that RDP file here. Now what happened? So this is public IP of my VM. This is public IP of my virtual machine, right? It's assigned when I deployed that virtual machine. It's automatically assigned this IP. You can customize this IP, right? If you're saying I want to do that public IP, which is I already have it in my organization, right? So you can do that. You can do that also, right? Now what happened? Connect. Click on connect. Now if we see that it's not allowing me to connect, at last I'm going to get the pop-up error. At last I'm going to get that pop-up error there. See, the remote connection cannot be established. Why? Because if you look at that networking part here, right, there is a network security group. There is a network security group is there. This app VM NSE, which got created when we deployed this virtual machine. And here I'm not doing, I'm not allowing any port, right? So for inbound, what I'm doing it now, I'm trying to get the access of my VM. I'm trying to get the access of my VM, right? So this is me. I'm trying to get the access of my VM from internet, right? And at the NSC, there is no allow or deny is happening it, right? By default, if you're not allowing anything here on that NSC, right, everything gets denied. So what I need to do it here, I need to allow my rule here. I need to create a rule which will state that for my IPs, right? For my IPs, allow that rule so I can access that virtual machine there. Let me go and add that rule there. So it's very simple to add that rule. It's asking what source port you are going to get it, right? It's a dynamic port. I can come with any port. Destination, it will be IP address. Now I need to get my IP address, right? Instead of going for that, let me search my IP address here. What is my IP? So it's just checking that IPv4. That's what we need to have it in my NSC rule. Or we can do another thing. Instead of putting that one IP here, right? I'm going to say it allow for everyone. Allow for anything. So if you are accessing that, if I am accessing that, right, any other person is trying to accessing that, they all will be able to access this VM. Source port range also I'm saying it allow for everyone. The asterisk is correspond to anyone, any protocol. If I want to TCP, UDP, let's say if I'm saying it, I need to allow only for 443. I can do that, right? Or I need to allow for port 80 only. I can do that, right? But since here I need to allow two port 80 and 80 and 3389, I'm saying it, put everything to be allowed. Now, rest of the things I can put my name here. This is to allow my traffic. I'm saying it, allowed inbound. And then click on add. This is going to create a rule for me. And now the rule is created, right? I'm allowing anything, anywhere for, this is not that recommended rule to give it any here, but for this demo section, I'm giving it any. Now let's do one thing. Go back to your RDB file and try to access that VM again. Again, that same RDB file which I downloaded, I'm trying to connect it now. This implementation of the rule will take some time to come in a picture, right? Because we just implemented. Yeah, it is floating IP. So destination is allowed for any protocol, any destination, any port. Right. Let me just download that RDB file. You can simply go in a connect here. Back to your VM. Just set your virtual machine. You have that app VM. Click on there. Connect. Download that RDB file here. It's downloaded. Now open this file. Try to connect now. See, now I got the pop-up here. Because I allowed that role, now I got the pop-up. Let me log in inside my. So password is failed. I must be typing it. 2, 3. Sorry, I forgot the password. Crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Share Daisy admin 3 4. What will be the Daisy admin? Okay. And I can reset my password here. I can come here and I can reset my password. I mean, I put some password there and I am not able to log in inside my VM because of the password got. So with password, we change that password here again. So I'm trying to log in inside my VM here. VM. I think it's not working. That password is not working. Something. Let me do one thing. I quickly get another VM. Once again, let me do that one thing, and then I'll going to let me put a better password here, right? Easy admin. Then I'll put in everything. Okay. Just give me a second. I'm just changing that name, VM name. So what I'm going to do it here, I'm going to take that VM access, and from there, I'm going to enable that web services, right? And then I'm trying to access from the internet. This VM got created. Let me connect it. Download the RDP file. VM connect. See admin 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I logged in inside my VM now. It's taking me inside my VM. Okay, now this is my new VM, right? This is entirely a like the we buy a new laptop, right? It's something like that, right? I bought a new virtual machine and now I can do my steps, what steps I want to do it here. Now, what I'm going to do it here, I'm going to configure a web server services here, right? From that server manager. Let's just VM to be upload here, load it here. It's a fresh new VM, right? You can see that a Windows 10 I server opted for Windows Server. So server manager is loading it here. Till the time it is happening, let me allow that port on the NIC because this time I just allowed that needed port. We also need to have that port 80 to be allowed there, right? So go in a setting, inbound, create a rule. source as in any, port as in any, service as in now 80. We are going to allow that HTTP service, right? We are going to allow that HTTP port 80 service. And then any, then name you can put that allow port 80 because my rules which I'm going to configure it, right? It's going to be configured on port 80 at. Okay, now port 80 allowed for anywhere from anything. Let's go to VM again. Click on add roles and feature. This is what I'm going to do it in my web role, web service access configuration. This is very simpler, nothing to do it, like just opt for web server IS role. It's going to add that feature. Next, 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 next again, and then install that role. This will take a minute or two to install that role. After this, right, once the role will get installed, what I'm going to do it here from my local laptop, right? Or I can put that IP in the chat. You guys can even try, right? And then try to access that if you're able to see that web page with the public IP of virtual machine. So once this role will get installed, right, which is that web server role, right? So what I'm going to do it here, first, I'm going to test it out from the VM's private IP. So if I'll go back in my role, right, in that overview section, you are seeing two IPs, one as in private, one as in public, right? Just go there in that private. So one as in private, one as in public. This is my VM. This is my public VM access, right? This is public VM IP. And the same time, you're also seeing that private IP, right? Since I inside that VM, right, the role where I'm configuring it is inside my VM, right? Now role got stalled. What I'm going to do it now, I'm going to take that IP, private IP, right? And then we'll try to access it from server. Let me put that HTTP because that has been configured on HTTP, right? I'm not going to opt for this one. HTTP, then backslash, put that IP is there. See, now I'm getting that web page access here, right? Now, if I'll try that, I need to access this from the internet. Locally, this web server is working, right? No issue with the web server. This is working. If I'll take that public IP, and even if I put that in a chat, right, you guys can also try to access that. You guys can hit that and see if you are able to access that because I allowed every IP is there, right? And if I'll do that HTTP backslash, see what is getting blocked here, right? It's not coming yet. But the private IP, the web server, which we put it there, it's working. It is working at the web server level, but not coming it here. See, you finally got that. No, it's still loading it, right? So let's go there in our cloud environment. One second, let me just hide that. And see, something is getting blocked at the NSG or not, right? Open that app setting, app PM. Okay, this port it is. Let me add a rule here and test in any. So I'm saying it. Hmm, right? Okay, allow action, right? Is that priority of the role was? Yeah. Me delete this rule for a while. So this is what happening it, right? At the local environment or that Windows server level, this service is working, right? See, and I can do one more thing here. I'll do, I'll create one, let me create a notepad file and I'll host my application there, right? I'll host my front end like the way you see it, right? Let me open this and I'll do some basic coding on HTML. I'm saying it H1 here, heading. This is my, so that we'll get to know if my VM is working fine, right? This is my app VM here. So again, this heading closed and I'll save this as in default dot html where inside my C drive, my window inetpub root all files inside my, I'll place that root here, right? Now if I'll do one thing here, right? After that, if I'll put that default dot html, see, this is my app VM, right? I'm getting that response from my app VM. Now let's go there. The rule is added now. Let's go and access that role from that public IP of VM. Copy that public IP again. Go in a virtual machine, copy that public IP and do access here. Now it is coming, right? I can do another thing. I can go to specific page there, default dot html, and we'll see. See, my VM from that internet is also working. Even you can try that. You can see that, right? So that's what we done with the demo. We done with this practical demo section where we, a person on the internet via internet is trying to access the services configured on the VM. The same way, right? In the real scenarios, you'll be seeing that services configured on your VM. So we are going to access that via here, right? Now the return communication is happening it to this user and this person is seeing that this is my app VM response, which I just created a HTML page and configure it there, right? So I think this is done. This is all from my side as an demo section. We can start that QA section if you guys have any questions, right? Please feel